And welcome back to Newsmax Now. For more on that China hack, we want to welcome in Stephen J.J. Weisman, attorney and professor at Bentley University. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
All right, so Stephen, you say this breach was first found in April and appears to have originated over a year ago. Why are we just hearing about this now then?
You know, it's an interesting thing. What happened was about a year ago, we were cleaning up from a hack at OPM, and it was in the course of cleaning up that hack that we found the new data breach. And part of the problem is we're using a program that really isn't up to the task. They call it Einstein, but apparently it isn't an Einstein. And this is a major problem because we've had federal agency after agency be hacked into because of improper security. The GEO did a study just last November in which they indicated that there were serious security flaws throughout the federal government in the protecting of our data.
Right, and when you look at images of some of these facilities, you can see why. As you mentioned, some of these systems are extremely old, but this is also happening in the private sector as well. So why is it taking so long to step up our security? This I just can't understand.
You know, neither can I, and I really think this is our Cyber 9/11, and hopefully tomorrow will be the Cyber 9/12, because we are in such a position of jeopardy, our economy, our infrastructure, and it isn't just China, it's also the Russians, it is cyber criminals, it is terrorists, and if we don't take the steps that we can already take, we're going to be in serious difficulty.
Stephen, so let me ask you this. If you were advising Congress or the Obama administration, what would you be telling them to do?
You know, the first thing I would say is that Congress and the Obama administration have got to get some legislation out there providing for cooperation and information sharing between private businesses and the government. And then we've got to have greater encryption of data. We've got to seal off certain data from the internet. There's a lot that can't be done that we already can do, but they've just got to take these first steps.
And but let me ask you though, some might say this is too little too late.
Well, I don't think it is, because fortunately it does appear that some of our most critical data is still protected. But this is an evolving problem, and if we don't do something about it now, we are going to have, in Germany a year ago, a steel plant melted down from an outside hacker. And this is the kind of thing we're facing with our infrastructure, where we have enemies, North Korea, which puts 20% of its defense budget into cyber warfare, ISIS, which is going to move toward this. So it's not too little too late, but we're certainly not early in the game.
All right, Stephen J.J. Weisman, thanks so much for joining us here on Newsmax Now. Always good to have you.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at this day in history. In 1948, the first Porsche was completed. In 1949, the FBI reports names of Hollywood figures who could be communists. In 1968, Robert Kennedy was buried. And if you're not watching our regularly scheduled live program, you can also catch some of our historic documentaries about important moments in history, like this one, John Glenn entering space.
He had served in 2 wars and flown over 150 combat missions. But in just 60 seconds, this Marine Corps officer would experience a ride like no other. At 9:47 a.m. on the 20th of February, 1962, Lieutenant Colonel John Glenn, Jr. of New Concord, Ohio, found himself sitting on top of an Atlas VI rocket filled with 600,000 pounds of fuel. At liftoff, 360,000 pounds of thrust hurled the massive rocket and its occupant into space and America's history books. John Glenn became the 4th human being to enter space and the first American to orbit the Earth. For his remarkable heroism, President Kennedy awarded Colonel Glenn NASA's Distinguished Service Medal.
As our knowledge of this universe in which we live increases, may God grant us the wisdom and guidance to use it wisely. Thank you, Colonel.
Glenn went on to become the United States Senator from Ohio, and in 1984 ran for the Democratic presidential nomination, but lost to Walter Mondale. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.
Walter Mondale, wow.
Blast from the
back
past,
me-
right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
space race. You know, it's interesting. We're talking about Russia, and we see the Russian cosmonauts working with the astronauts. We still need Russia to go to space, and it's like once we started that relationship, it's like, oh, peace with Russia, it's achieved. Check it off the list.
It did seem like that,
Things
didn't
are done.
it?
We're going to space with them. We're sharing the International Space Station, but obviously much more work to do.
Yeah, I would say just a little bit there. Hopefully that can be resolved. Where's Reagan when you need him, right?
That's exactly what we were talking about right here earlier.
All right, still more to come. You're watching Newsmax Now. Coming up, your headlines from around the globe. Stay with us.